Hello, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm celebrating 500 subscribers. Thanks so much for your continued support and all your lovely comments. Again, I'm sorry if I haven't replied to some comments. Sometimes I miss them or YouTube hides them from me. There's lots of lovely stuff coming up. I'm going to be doing part 2 of my introduction to Japanese cinema. I'm going to be doing a sequel to my very popular video on oddball horror films. I'm going to be doing a Carl Dreyer ranking, and I'm going to be ranking the Val Lewton horror movies, and I'm going to be discussing philosophical novels. So that's all coming up. But today is my silly celebration of 500 subscribers video. This is a tradition on this channel, and this is a particularly silly one. Do you remember that moment in Alan Partridge when he's talking to that guy about music, and he says he likes Wings, and the guy says, "What's your favourite Wings album?" And Alan Partridge goes, "Best of Wings." Well, I'm kind of like that with music. When people start discussing, the differences between Revolver and Rubber Soul and the White Album, I'm like, okay, it's all just the Beatles to me. I'm not really a muso. I'm not really musically that knowledgeable, and I tend to rely on the best of albums. I'm not very knowledgeable about the individual albums. So today I thought I'd present my 10 best of albums that I've got. The latest one I bought is this one, Japan. Do you remember this? Do you remember Japan? 80s band. They did things like Quiet Life, Life in Tokyo, Ghosts. They were a great band, but they're forgotten. But this isn't a great best of album. It's not a great collection. So we'll leave that one over there. But we're going to start with The King. Yes. David Bowie, the best of Bowie. I was one of those people who was genuinely upset when David Bowie died. We'd lost one of the greats. One of the few real artists, I think, of popular music. Am I allowed to say that? Well, I've said it now. And this little collection of his can't possibly collect together all the best Bowie tracks. That's not, you just can't do that. But it's a good selection of all the different reincarnations of Bowie, all these little changes and all these little different types of music he put out there. So you start with Space Oddity and The Man Who Sold the World. I love that song. And all the great early ones like Changes and Life on Mars and Starman, Waiting in the Sky. Goes through to, Diamond Dogs, Rebel Rebel, Wild is the Wind, Sound and Vision and Heroes. That's my favourite period. And then it goes through. I quite like the fact that they've kept some of the sort of more modern ones like Hello Spaceboy and Little Wonder. I think this came out in the early 2000s, so it doesn't have the really late stuff. But as a best of, this is a pretty good collection of Bowie. You can't go far wrong. For me, still the best artist in the world of popular music. I love the way he kept experimenting and changing himself. So impressive. And he was always good in whichever incarnation he was in. Though I quite like that sort of late 70s, early 80s synth period. And his female counterpart is, of course, Kate Bush. This best of The Whole Story, which is almost like an album in itself, really, it came out quite early. I think it was actually in 1986. So she was still sort of, really in the middle of her career. But this was one of my favourite albums as a teenager, and I still listen to it a lot these days. I vividly remember first seeing Kate Bush on television. I was about 5 years old, and that's when she released Wuthering Heights, and she did that famous video of her twirling around in a leotard, just going, "Ow, ow, ow." I remember that really vividly, and everyone being obsessed by it. Nowadays, an artist like Kate Bush would never get going. Because there's so much choice and so many channels and so many niches now, you can never get an artist like Bowie, like Kate Bush, coming in and everyone sees them, right? Because, popular culture is into, channels. Like, so for example, when I was growing up, there was only 3 TV channels, BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. So you had a much more directed focus and everyone was watching and listening to the same things. And that's how someone like Kate Bush, so original, so different, became famous and became popular. And I miss those days. Nowadays, she'd be lost in the mix. This has got all of her best early songs, like The Man with the Child in His Eyes, Hounds of Love, Running Up That Hill, which has recently become famous because of Stranger Things. Isn't that irritating? When the younger generation only discover a great song through watching some show or some advert. I'm a really grumbly old man, aren't I? Yeah, I know. And Babushka, I love Babushka. Still, I think one of the best templates for a best of album there's ever been. Love Kate Bush. She's the nerd male's great fantasy female, isn't she? She writes about gothic horror and fairy tales, the things that, nerdy guys are interested in. Okay, let's go back to the 60s and the wonderful era of the great rock band in Britain in the 1960s. And what I think over in America and Canada they rather wonderfully call British Invasion. That's how it's labelled on record shops over there. I think that's fantastic. So, of course, I'm going to pick the Beatles. Yes, how boringly obvious is that? And I'm going to pick the Beatles' Blue album, 1967 to 1970. When I was a kid, my brother and my sister used to listen to the two. There were two collections of the Beatles. There was the Red album, the Red Apple. That was the early stuff, the woo-woo stuff, the mop-top stuff. And then there was the later blue stuff, the sort of I Am the Walrus, Goo 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 stuff, the sort of hippie-trippy, we're visiting gurus in India stuff. And that's what I like. I like Day in the Life. I like, Sergeant Pepper, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, I Am the Walrus. And the sort of more rock stuff like, Come Together and Back in the USSR, Revolution. That's more my kind of Beatles. Although I miss Paperback Writer, that's not on here. But that's the kind of Beatles that I was into. I was into the Blue Apple. With the Stones, I have to admit, I am more of a Rolling Stones person than I am a Beatles person. I'm one of those people. Mick Jagger is a cock, isn't he? He's a complete idiot. But he wrote brilliant lyrics. And somehow Jagger's lyrics for me really sum up the 60s and the spirit of rebellion and newness. More than the Beatles, really. And this is a good, best of the Rolling Stones, 40 licks. It sort of sums up the best of them. You go from, Satisfaction all the way through to Gimme Shelter, Miss You. It's got all the best ones on there. I also, if you're a Stones fan, advise you to get this. The Rolling Stones singles collection, The London Years. This is really, really great. And there's a lot of their really good early stuff like We Love You. I love We Love You. I love the sarcasm of it and the sounds of the prison gate slamming and everything. And I really like Memo from Turner, which is the song Mick Jagger sings in Performance, the Donald Cammell Nicholas Roeg film, which you can get on this one. So, big Stones fan. They're still the best rock band, really, aren't they? Aren't they? Yes, they are. Now, some people might say The Who. This is the third great band of Britain in the 60s, the Ultimate Collection. This is a very good collection. It's got their early funny ones, It's got the silly ones like I'm a Boy and Boris the Spider and Pictures of Lily, which is a song about masturbating. I like this early silly Who. I like, My Generation, The Kids Are All Right. Then it goes through to the more sort of American, big anthem rocks, Baba O'Reilly, 5:15, all that stuff. Won't Get Fooled Again. All those songs that provided the opening theme tunes for iterations of CSI, that crime series in America. They all had their opening theme tunes are all by The Who. I don't know why. So they're a great band. I never liked Roger Daltrey. I never liked Pete Townsend. I think they're wankers. But they did make some good rock music. Pinball Wizard, amazing. And the fourth great English rock band from the 60s is, of course, the Kinks. The Ultimate Collection. This is a brilliant best of the Kinks. I didn't used to listen to the Kinks when I was younger. I sort of ignored them. And then a few years ago, I started listening to the Kinks to see if I'd missed out on anything. I had a Canadian friend of mine who's really into 60s English rock music. And what stunned me was how many of the Kinks songs I knew without realising they were by the Kinks. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, these were the guys who gave us Sunny Afternoon, a brilliant song, brilliant lyrics, brilliantly funny. Waterloo Sunset, the best popular rock song ever written. Just putting that out there. Lola, years before Woke, years before all this discussion of transgender, there's a song about a guy going into a club and getting off with a woman who's really a man. Right there in the 1960s, and it's a great song. Shangri-La, one of the best songs ever written about the English working class. I love Celluloid Heroes, so moving. I like the sentimental songs of the Kinks, like Days. I love those songs. Living on a Thin Line, that was appropriated by the right wing as an anthem, actually. I think why I like the Kinks so much, why I've come to love the Kinks, is they are the voice of the working class in the 60s. Jagger was the voice of revolution and newness. And they were all sort of, I mean, you know, the Beatles, the Who, and the Kinks all came from a vaguely working class background. But Ray Davies and his brother, I think, sang the lyrics of the working class and embodied their spirit. And that's why I've come to value them more and more. This collection doesn't really include much by my favourite album, the Village Green Preservation Society. I love this album. I love it so much. I love the opening song. I love, is it Last of the Steam-Powered Trains? That's a great rock song. And my personal favourite, All of My Friends Were There. A sort of seeming comedy song, but with this beautiful, very moving chorus. But if you're interested in 60s British rock music, Kinks The Ultimate Collection is a fantastic collection. Now, the great band that started in the 60s and then went on into the 70s was, of course, Pink Floyd. Now, collecting together Pink Floyd, Best of Pink Floyd, is a bit of a mug's game because Pink Floyd specialised in concept albums. So if you're really into Pink Floyd, you really want to be listening to Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here. I mean, they are masterpieces. And yes, okay, I like metal as well. I'm one of those people who likes metal as well. I mean, Echoes, what an amazing song. I know. But this is not bad. As best ofs go, it's a pretty good collection. It's called A Foot in the Door, the best of Pink Floyd. There's only one Syd Barrett song. Poor old Syd. See Emily play. That's the one song they've got. But then, you know, you've got all the classics. You've got Another Brick in the Wall, Have a Cigar, Wish You Were Here, Time, Great Gig in the Sky, Comfortably Numb. You know, it's all there. It's best to listen to the concept albums with Pink Floyd. But if you want to get into Pink Floyd, this is a good place to start. Now, controversially, my favourite British band since the 60s. Who could that be? Roxy Music? Radiohead? No. I'm going a little bit punk on you. I'm going to pick the Stranglers. I bloody love the Stranglers. The Stranglers were the first band I ever listened to as a child because I used to have this little toy record player, this little red record player. And I used to go and borrow albums off my brother and my sister, mostly my brother. And the first album I borrowed and I listened to was the Black and White album by the Stranglers, still one of my favourite albums ever. This is when they're still a bit punkish and they're moving more away from punk, sort of transition period. And it's got wonderful classics like Tank, I Want to Drive My Tank, Nice and Sleazy, Toiler on the Sea, or Toilet on the Sea, as most people remember it, Threatened. And it also has two wonderful songs that just take a jab, just for no apparent reason, at Sweden and Tokyo. Which is one of the reasons I quite like it. I love the Stranglers' lyrics. They're so sarcastic and intelligent and brilliant, with brilliant music. I love the dirty guitar. I love the synth. This collection is a very good collection, and it gets a lot of the best Get a Grip on Yourself, right through to things like Golden Brown. And it even includes La Folie, their very controversial song that they sang in French about a true-life murder case in Paris, where this Japanese student actually ate another student and then got away with it scot-free, was declared mad and went back to Japan scot-free. Well, under house arrest anyway. And they made a song about it. I really pine for those days when rock groups were really dangerous and rebellious and did anything they wanted. I kind of miss those days. The Stranglers are a great punk spirit that I wish we could get back in this country. I got this free with the Daily Mail. I don't buy the Daily Mail, just by the way, but I saw this was free, so I bought a copy. Live, the Stranglers, with some of their best songs, including some of their later poppy songs like Always the Sun and Strange Little Girl. This doesn't include those songs at all. And things like, Skin Deep, they're not on the collection, which is a shame, really. Now let's go 80s, because I'm an 80s kid, 80s meant Gary Newman. Bloody love Gary Newman. Cars Our Friends Electric, We Are Glass, and Alan Partridge's favourite, Music for Chameleons. I love Gary Newman. I don't care that he came out as a Tory in the 80s. That doesn't bother me at all. It bothers some people, but it doesn't bother me. He was a great synth master, and I love his music, and I still go back to it regularly. This is a good collection, and it has both versions of Cars, the remix later and the original version. Still one of the best synth songs, if not the best synth song ever written. Now, going off on a completely different tangent, the 80s is now associated with synth pop and the New Romantics. I never really liked the New Romantics. I did like synth pop a lot. And then it went into house music and acid music, which I got into later on. But there was a little bubble early in the 80s. And this bubble was occupied by a group called Madness. Yes, I was a Madness fan. Madness are a band that is linked with it's called ska. I believe it's a kind of reggae. I don't know much about music, but I think it's a kind of reggae, and it was very much a London, sort of working class London vibe. And their songs are silly and funny and about working class life, and I love the sort of reggae styling of them. Baggy trousers, dirty shirts, My Girl. I love Nightboat to Cairo, that makes me laugh. Cardiac Arrest, I think, is a brilliant song. I love the truth of their lyrics. They're just truthful portrait of working class everyday life. Their sense of fun, and also just great songs. And this is a good collection. But actually, if you really like Madness, you need to get this one and this one, Utter Madness. Because this one has Our House, Driving in My Car, Michael Caine, Wings of a Dove. I mean, they're classics of Madness that are not on this collection. I love the Michael Caine song. I'm one of those Madness fans who really enjoy that Michael Caine song. But Our House and Driving in My Car, you've got to have those, really. So I adore Madness. Get these two together for the complete Madness fix. And my last choice, I'm a kid of the 80s. What do you expect me to pick? I've got to pick the greatest hits of Human League. Oh, yes. I love the Human League. Good old Phil Oakey. What a guy. Electric Dreams. That song sums up what Human League are all about. Electric Dreams, that's what it was. Don't You Want Me, Baby? Do you remember those days? I was 12 when that came out. And that was the song that everyone wanted to hear in the discotheque. And you sang along to it, and then the DJ dropped the mic, and you went, don't you want me, baby? Then you went, drop the mic, and went, oh. Everyone did that, didn't they? I remember that so well. I love every song on this album. I even love the classic that is Louise, a very, very silly song, which I adore with all my heart, about how he meets up with this girl he used to go out with. Look out for the video on YouTube. It's Phil Oakey on a barge boat. Why is he on a barge boat? I don't know. Keep Feeling Fascination. Oh my God, every song on this track, on this album is wonderful. I love all the gossip about Phil Oakey and the two women. I think he had a relationship with both of them at some point. But it's just really great synth pop, and it hasn't aged a bit. I adore it. So those are my 10 best of albums. What are yours? What bands have I missed out? Are there some particularly good selections out there that I've missed? I realise as I've come to the end of this list, I've picked an all Brit list. That wasn't intentional, it just sort of happened that way. So is there any sort of American best-ofs that I'm missing out on, or European best-ofs that I'm missing out on? I do have the best of Bob Dylan somewhere, but I wasn't going to pick that. So let me know your responses, and as always, if you like my content, please like and subscribe.